Good evening, everybody. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, North Carolina. It is Thursday, February the 6th, 2025. Coming up on 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time here, we're watching a couple severe storms that are just now beginning to push into portions of western North Carolina. I should say right off the bat here as we come up. It's about 10:26 now. We don't have any tornado warnings to tell you about imminently, but there have been some tornado warnings just off to our west over portions of Tennessee tonight. And that's what we're going to be keeping a close eye on as we head through the overnight hours. And so let's get right on into this here as you're joining us both on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube and streaming on our Carolina Weather Net. You can see the name of the game right now is this severe thunderstorm that is going to be making its way into North Carolina imminently here in the next few minutes. And that's why the National Weather Service does have a severe thunderstorm warning that is posted for Buncombe County, Haywood, and Yancey counties, as well as portions of southern Madison County. And you can see that this same yellow polygon is actually a red tornado warning polygon as it exits Tennessee. That's because the storm, which is right on in here, was likely producing a tornado as it made its way from west to east across portions of, say, Knoxville and Sevierville, Tennessee. That was all in eastern Tennessee. Well, now as it prepares to cross the state line, which is right on up in here, the National Weather Service office is going to go ahead and make this a severe thunderstorm warning. That does still mean it has the chance to bring some damaging winds, 60-mile-per-hour wind gust, and quarter-size hail. Those alone could bring severe weather impacts to locations including, but not limited to, downtown Asheville, as well as Black Mountain, Swannanoa, Weaverville, Fairview. We know these are a lot of areas that were hard hit by Helene, and there's probably a good amount of severe weather anxiety still in those regions following that storm. And so that is a very real thing. And so right now we wanted to tell you that there is no tornado warning to be concerned about, but we are watching for a late night February severe thunderstorm to come moving on through portions of western North Carolina here in the next few minutes. And rest assured that the folks at the National Weather Service office are keeping a very close eye on this to see if they need to expand that tornado warning or do anything with the current warning. But again, right now we have no tornado warnings for North Carolina, just this last one that's holding on just on the Tennessee side of the line. Now, just to the north of that, you're probably also noticing as you look towards Johnson City, and this is again now going to be making its way towards Blowing Lock, Boone, Todd, and Jefferson, we do have some other severe storms. Let's change radar angles here and see if we can maybe get a better perspective on this if we use the radar on the Tennessee side of the mountains. And you can see that those storms right now have been producing gusty winds. You can see we do have wind damage reported here on the Tennessee side of the line. And we're going to watch to see what the National Weather Service office does. I know it's a little hard to see. The state line is about right on in here where I'm drawing in with my telestrator. So all of the warnings for this area are still on the Tennessee side, but we'll wait to see what the National Weather Service decides to do with Wake and Avery and Watauga counties and the like up here, and of course Wilkes downstream. But you know, we have been watching, as some of you I'm sure at home have also been watching, the severe weather that was making its way through Tennessee tonight. We've always thought throughout the day that some of the worst weather was going to be on the Tennessee side of the line, and that certainly seems to be what was playing out, with the idea that by the time these storms got over to North Carolina, both by the hour of the day and the terrain and the amount of energy available in the atmosphere, that the ingredients won't really be there for any sort of tornado threat. Most of that tornado threat is right where you see on the screen right there where the yellow risk is outlined by the Storm Prediction Center on the Tennessee side of the line. But you can see we do have that marginal darker green area that does kind of just eclipse some of those first few counties in western North Carolina as these storms come in from Tennessee. The threat there primarily will be in the form of damaging winds or severe thunderstorms. I'm going to pause for just a second. I'm looking myself up on a monitor right here, and I'm going to see if there's anything I could do to maybe make this signal a little bit clearer for you guys, because it looks great to me here, but I'm looking at what you guys are seeing, and you're probably seeing a little bit of a degradation in the quality of that signal. So I'm very sorry for that, and let's see if we can go ahead and maybe make that a little bit clearer for you here so that you can see exactly what it is of course, that I'm seeing back here at home. I do see some of your comments coming in, right? So, yes, I am in Charlotte, Crystal. I'm in the county west of you. We're okay. Yeah, we're good. I assume you're probably in Gaston County then. So you can see right here from the Storm Prediction Center as we head through the rest of Thursday, and this does encompass the overnight hours into early Friday morning. That light green area just means we could see a brief rumble of thunder, maybe a lightning strike. There could certainly be something that in the middle of the night you do here. We don't expect that to be any sort of severe threat for much of us. Matter of fact, this probably doesn't even warrant our threshold for coming on the air here tonight on the Carolina Weather Group, other than the fact that we have seen on radar some of these stronger storms coming out of western Tennessee. So it's possible that our neighbors to our west, Crystal, along the mountains, along the ridge, if you're in western North Carolina, right up against the Tennessee border, and you're in that darker green area, that's a marginal risk, a tier 1 out of 5 that the Storm Prediction Center uses for the chance of seeing severe weather. And so that does mean that primarily we're looking at the possibility that we could see a severe thunderstorm warning there up in the mountains. That means the chance of, say, 60-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-size hail, both of those probably at about a 5% chance of actually occurring. The tornado threat in western North Carolina is near zero. It's primarily in that yellow area back in Tennessee. That's the slight risk, tier 2 out of 5, the National Weather Service uses. And there's a 2% chance of a tornado occurring in that area. We have seen what have seemed to be some tornadoes tonight in western to the west of the border in eastern Tennessee. And so that's kind of why we're popping on here tonight, because I suspect that as people are starting to get ready to go to bed, there might be that lingering question of, I hear thunder in the distance, I see lightning, what is it that might be happening? And again, we know that this area hard hit by Helene. I would anticipate, for good reason, there could be some storm anxiety still up in the mountains. So as we look at the radar here tonight, you can see we have a lot of training thunderstorms that are pushing from west to east, and they're just now coming out of eastern Tennessee, coming into North Carolina. And so that's why the National Weather Service here at home in the Carolinas has issued that severe thunderstorm warning for the chance of damaging winds and quarter-size hail in portions of the greater Asheville area to the north there. And downtown area is included. We do have a live look tonight at Asheville. Right now, things still relatively quiet, still dry there. As you head on to bed, it's just, we can actually see some of that lightning off in the distance right now on our Asheville camera, as you can see there. So, you know, it's always good as you head to bed to have some way to get severe weather warnings, whether that be a NOAA weather radio or an app. Just make sure that your phone is going to notify you while you're asleep of a severe weather alert. Don't put it on Do Not Disturb, or make sure that any of those weather apps are excluded from the Do Not Disturb so that you can know about them. So we're again looking at this live camera here in Asheville downtown. You can see the lightning off in the distance there at night. Again, we're looking now off to the west towards Tennessee. This camera does automatically swing back and forth. I don't have any control of it. So as it pans now back to the left, we may move away from that lightning for a short period of time before the camera swings on back. I'll use that as an opportunity to take a couple more questions. Dylan is saying, is the tornado threat expected to ramp up overnight? It's really not, Dylan. Matter of fact, what little of a tornado threat we have on the board right now is diminishing as we head on through the overnight hours. There's a chance we could get a tornado warning in North Carolina tonight. That chance is low. Better chance if we do see anything in terms of severe weather, it would be one of these brief, isolated, severe thunderstorms. But because the chance is there, we wanted to make sure that as you guys are winding on down and getting ready to go to bed, you did have that in mind. And if you have a severe weather protocol in your home, that you were enacting that tonight so that you could be woken up in the middle of the night. Elizabeth is watching on YouTube with us in Canna. She says she's hearing thunder off in the distance. We appreciate that report. And Chris here on YouTube, rain is starting back up along the Avery and Watauga line. We do have cameras closer to you, Chris. Here's our favorite resort cam camera there on King Street in Boone. We'll be keeping a close eye on things as it makes its way through that area. And as you saw on radar a few minutes ago, is just now really starting to come into North Carolina from the Tennessee side. So the rain will be picking up where you are, Chris. The rain will be picking up here closer to Asheville as we go on through the night. Crystal, thanks so much for coming on late to keep us informed and safe. You're very welcome. Thanks for being a subscriber of the Carolina Weather Group and being along with us for our show each week and these severe weather updates as things are needed. David asking about Wilkes County. Again, as the storms get further into into North Carolina, David, we expect there to not be a lot of instability. Same thing for Old Fort. That was a comment a little bit earlier on. But let me show you our future cast here. This is the high resolution rapid refresh. This is a model that NOAA and the National Weather Service put on out. And we really like it because it comes out every hour. We don't have to wait a long period of time for it to come out. It's a very high resolution HD, if you will. Let's make this a little bit bigger on your screen. And we are able to really get a lot of good data from it. So hopefully you can see this a little bit better now. You know, one of your comments was thanking me for coming on so late. And I'll tell you guys, when we do these late night streams here at my house, I moved to a secondary location that we're still building out. So some of this graphical stuff is a little bit different than when I'm in my normal streaming spot, and we'll get a little bit better over time. More on that later. Let me play this future cast for you now. And as you can see, we go on through the overnight hours. These band, if you will, of heavy rain and thunder will move into North Carolina. But as we get through the overnight hours, that is likely to break up. So this is about 4 or 5 o'clock into the future here, and you can see what was kind of more organized line becomes a little bit more scattered. Certainly, as daybreak comes to Raleigh, as comes to central North Carolina, Asheboro, and the like, you might hear a rumble of thunder, but you can see the difference between where we are right now with a more organized cluster of thunderstorms coming out of eastern Tennessee. Again, that does largely kind of hold together a little bit as it comes right on up to the border, and then it kind of really starts to spread out and fizzle. So we're not expecting any sort of real high severe weather threat over there in the overnight hours, but we know it's February. We know it's been a minute since we have had any sort of like severe weather outbreak. And so we'd rather be safe than sorry. And we figured we'd just pop onto the stream here tonight to say, hey, as you go to bed tonight, you know, keep that weather radio nearby in case you certainly need to be woken up in the middle of the night and alerted to things. Looking at our chat right now, we're in a private chat room with the National Weather Service and other broadcast meteorologists. They've been keeping a very close eye on this here in the Carolinas. They've been watching what's coming downstream from Tennessee tonight, as we have here at the Carolina Weather Group too. And so you can be rest assured that even if we're not streaming, even if I'm not sitting here, the fine folks at the National Weather Service are keeping an eye on it, and they will sound the alarm if they need to awaken you from that sleep, so long as you have a way to receive those very vital warnings from them, again, via a weather app or so on and so forth. Let's pop that Asheville camera back on up. It's, again, I think it's panned over to the left maybe, and it's when we get back over to the right, we were starting to see some of that lightning move on into the area. So we'll watch for that to kind of pan back on over. We do have a comment. Veronica's watching extreme thunder, she says, in Southwest Virginia. Certainly, and you know, this is a perfect use case that we know the Carolina Weather Group, we've got eyes on the other side of the border, right? In Virginia and in Tennessee, we're kind of all working with the same atmosphere. So thanks for checking in with us, Veronica. Extreme thunder, that's quite the term you've used there. And as we slide that radar back up towards the Virginia line, we can see a little bit about what it is Veronica is talking about right here up towards the Virginia line, the Tennessee, kind of that Tri-Cities area. And we do now have a severe thunderstorm warning that was issued a bit out ahead of the line almost here. This is going to be in North Carolina, Sparta, Mount Airy, White Plains, Cana, Virginia, Fancy Gap. I think one of you was in Cana, if I'm not mistaken. This is again now for Allegheny and Surrey, Wilkes, Carroll, Grayson, Patrick. Those are the counties, both North Carolina and Virginia, where we do have this severe thunderstorm capable of producing 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Not seeing much in terms of hail. I know we just had a question a moment ago about Wilkes. Again, not expecting any sort of tornado threat really in this area, but we are watching here. You can see that kind of out in the head of this storm. And we were seeing in Tennessee, and we can see if it's kind of holding true here, that the winds are really kind of picking up out ahead of the rain. So not only is there going to be heavy rain and the threat kind of some of the training effect from storms that lead to flash flooding, but gusty winds that are coming out ahead of this line. And you can see now it's already starting to reach that I-77 corridor right there at the base of the mountain, again, from Fancy Gap in Virginia down towards Mount Airy in North Carolina. You'll also see me a bit here flashing between a couple different radar views. So we have a radar in Roanoke, that's in Blacksburg, Virginia, technically. We have a radar that's back in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's really good for that backside of the mountain. But all of these radars are kind of blocked by terrain in different forms or fashions. So as we start to get into western North Carolina, we'll use the GSP radar down in Greer, but then I've got to kind of switch it to the higher view to get up into the terrain a little bit, because from that vantage point in upstate South Carolina, we got to look up into the mountains, versus when we're in Roanoke and I want to get into North Carolina and I almost kind of have to look back down. So you'll see me doing a lot of clicking here as we kind of bounce not only between different radar sites, but different altitudes as we're keeping an eye on things. So this Surrey County storm, let's just quickly look at the radar here and see what type of winds we're talking about. The warning issued because of the threat of 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and certainly right now in Sparta, we're seeing near 60-mile-per-hour winds. That is enough to cause wind damage, and that is also the baseline that the Weather Service uses for severe thunderstorm warnings. You can see we have similar readings on radar in other portions of western North Carolina. I'm near Jefferson here as we make our way down towards Boone and Blowing Rock. But again, this is just radar, so it's a bit elevated up in the atmosphere. And when you kind of mix that in with the terrain, it gets a little bit tricky here using radar for wind speeds in the mountains, because you get all sorts of wind blockage and stuff. So we'll watch for more of these yellow severe thunderstorm polygons to be added on as needed. But again, if you're looking at this map, the state line is kind of like right on in here. Not the best I've ever drawn it. And so you can kind of see, again, as I switch this back from wind to reflectivity, which will show us the rain here on the North Carolina side, it's already now starting to pick up in Mountain City and making its way out of Roan Mountains. The rain will pick up in Blowing Rock and Boone and Todd and Jefferson if it hasn't already. If I switch the radar back on over to the Tennessee side of the mountain, you can kind of see how it fills back in behind it. So we kind of have two parts of that same storm we're looking at. A lot of times when you look on your apps on your phone, you'll get what's called composite radar, and you get kind of one big picture. But by bouncing between these different radars, I can actually kind of get a better view of what exactly is happening in a more real-time kind of vantage point, and that's kind of why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. I think the big one we're keeping an eye on is this line of storms that's coming out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and making its way into North Carolina, making its way down towards Asheville, because this at one point was a tornado-warned storm. It's not anymore, but at one point was producing likely a tornado in portions of eastern Tennessee. And now as it makes its way into western North Carolina, it's this guy right on here that not only can we see is producing lightning, but this is kind of where that tornado was earlier. And as I switch on over to velocity, we can kind of still see the lasting impacts of what at one point was some circulation in that storm. And we can see that by the area of kind of, it's really bright green, almost kind of white or blue, up against some remnants of red. I've circled it there near the lightning, and that's where the winds are circulating in a way that they could rotate up into a tornado. It's far less prevalent than it was before, and that's why the National Weather Service has a severe thunderstorm warning on it and not a tornado warning on it. But I'm sure they're watching it very carefully to see if it were to hypothetically reorganize as it makes its way closer to the Asheville area. If we did find ourselves in a tornado warning, then what you would want to do is get yourself to a safe place. That is a sturdy structure, the lowest level of that sturdy structure, and the most interior room possible. As many walls between you and the outside as possible, away from doors, away from windows. In my house here in Charlotte, I don't have a basement. We go under the stairs on the first floor, because that is how I can get as many walls between me and the outside as possible. Again, not expecting that here in Charlotte, not really even expecting it in western North Carolina, but we are keeping an eye on a couple things right on here as we move on through the area. Confirmation from Elizabeth, watching from Canada, the Mount Airy, North Carolina area, as I was mentioning on our previous radar scan. So appreciate that confirmation. Appreciate you being with us tonight, Elizabeth, and everyone here on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube channel. We'll activate more of our social pages if we were to get any sort of tornado warning. Right now, we're just keeping it kind of intimate with you guys here on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube, and appreciate you doing that. Chris saying thunder and lightning increasing pretty quickly here in Beech Mountain. That is just to the north of the cell I have on the screen. We'll take you back up there in a second, Chris, as Katie is also near you in Banner Elk. where some of that lightning is increased. The lightning we've been able to see a bit on our Asheville camera, so let's watch for this here as it pans back on over, and then we'll take another look at what's going on a little bit further north. But this is the camera here. I think it's atop the courthouse, if I'm not mistaken. Again, it's just kind of automated. It swings back and forth, but it's a great vantage point over a great city. And as it makes its way back over to the right now, we'll be able to keep an eye out for some of that lightning that was happening off into the distance. So we look forward to just catching that here for you in just a moment. And that also gives me a moment to kind of check on some of our chats from the National Weather Service offices and the other broadcast meteorologists and emergency officials to see exactly what it is they may be keeping an eye on. I think this is about the angle here where we started to see some lightning off in the distance. Ian, if I'm saying that right, says can hear distant thunder. That's about it from their vantage point there in Spruce Pine. Appreciate that report. And as Chris and Katie have been discussing, yeah, they're only about 3 or 4 miles apart there at the near beach. And so appreciate you guys being with us. As we get over here towards the right, it'll stop for a moment here as we continue to look live over Asheville. We'll expect to see some of that lightning from that approaching thunderstorm, where we do have that severe thunderstorm warning in effect. And that severe thunderstorm warning for the greater Asheville area does go until at least 11 o'clock. We'll wait to see if the National Weather Service decides to extend it. They have had observed 1-inch size hail. So that is more than the bare minimum they would need for this severe thunderstorm warning. 1-inch size hail is big enough to cause minor hail damage to vehicles. You can also expect wind damage to trees and power lines possible with 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts with this. And as we've been talking about, there is the possibility that this thunderstorm approaching Asheville could produce a tornado. It has a history of producing a tornado. We don't believe it currently is, but locations inside the severe thunderstorm warning should continue to monitor for updates. And that would include the downtown area of Asheville, as well as Black Mountain, Swannanoa, Weaverville, and Fairview, and also Woodfin as we continue to watch this storm that's on camera right now. This is the one that has prompted the National Weather Service to issue that severe thunderstorm warning, and quite the lightning show it is putting on. So as we pop radar back up, I think we're really seeing the lightning. Not only that is, let's see, some of the closest lightning strikes right now from Asheville are under 20 miles away, but as we go back across the Tennessee line, maybe even 40 or 50 miles away, this particular line of storms is continuing to train, which means it's kind of repeated over the same area, kind of like a train coming down the tracks. And so I bet you guys are seeing some of that lightning from even further back, as again, the greater Knoxville metro area is continuing to see this line of thunderstorms. Lots of you, again, watching from a little bit north of there. So let's switch back on over to my weather radar. That's technically, again, in Blacksburg, Virginia. I think we can all agree Roanoke's a pretty good way to identify that one. And we'll switch that here again a little bit, and we can start to see we are getting that lightning, we're getting that thunder. We can see a little bit heavier of rain right on through here. Lansing, Jefferson, just north of Todd and Boone and Banner Elk. Beach Mountain as well. Let's see if I switch this on over to wind, what type of wind we may be getting in there. Again, similar kind of line as we watch here. No warning for this area just on yet, but we can also take a look to see maybe if we're getting any sort of hail by using this liquid detector, and not seeing much on radar. Again, I got to tell you, radar in the mountains can be a whole masterclass that somebody other than me would have to teach because of the terrain and the way the beam works through there. I'm going to pause here a second, widen this picture back on out. I'm also wondering if there's just any way to make my picture a little bit clearer. I'm not loving exactly how that picture is or is not coming across to you guys. Maybe if I turn my webcam off here for a moment, let's just see if that makes the picture a little bit clearer for you guys, because I know there's a lot of detail on radar that I would love to make sure you guys are all getting, depending on where it is that you guys are watching from. So I'm going to wait a second here as my YouTube TV catches back on up to see if that makes my radar image any clearer for everybody. And then Daniel, where was hail reported? So hail of any sort of size that could potentially cause damage is going to be anywhere where those yellow polygons are. And so that would be kind of right now Allegheny, Surrey, Wilkes. There's a severe thunderstorm warning there until 11:15 at night. We also have another severe thunderstorm warning closer to Asheville. So that's counties like Buncombe, Haywood, Madison, and Yancey. And that one goes until 11:30. And so that's kind of right now where the biggest threat of seeing some hail is. And we do have, again, that hail detected with the storm that is a little bit closer to Asheville. Let me move the radar back on down to that one. And if I switch us to the perspective that is going to work best for this storm, it's going to be the one out of Greer in upstate South Carolina. I'm going to switch it on over to the view that helps us see hail. And so you can see right now, the area of the thunderstorm that is most of interest is just south of Marshall here, just outside of Weaverville. And that's where some of the hail threat is right now. So this is from Asheville to the north and to the west, about 10, 11 miles or so. Interestingly enough, this is also the portion of the storm that previously was producing a tornado. It is not currently producing a tornado to the best of our knowledge, but it is really kind of the epicenter of this particular storm that everyone's keeping an eye on. So that's where we've had some of those hail reports come on through. And so you can see that if I put a storm track on this, it's going to be to you in Weaverville at about 11 o'clock on the nose, Montreat and Black Mountain at about 11:15. I wouldn't rule out the chance that this could clip Woodfin or Asheville. We do have as far north as Mars Hill and as far south as Fairview in this warning. Again, the hail seems to kind of be shooting right down the middle, so Weaverville to Black Mountain, but we still do have heavy rain. And so, we've heard from officials tonight, we've heard from officials over the last few days that both the rain that we're getting tonight and the rain that we could be getting with these storms as we head on into next week, which is shaping up to be a wet, rainy pattern, isn't going to be anything like Helene. But because of the amount of temporary structures in Western North Carolina and because of the amount of temporary roadways in North Carolina, we have already seen that some of these periods of heavy rains, which in previous years may have really been nothing, because of those temporary bridges, temporary roads, temporary structures, we have seen some of those temporary things wash away with more frequency than we would have had just a year ago in a pre-Helene era. So whether that's tonight or later on next week, that is something we want to keep an eye on, certainly, because we know that is a fact of life right now in Western North Carolina. Again, that's one of the reasons we came on tonight to do this stream. As much as we love talking about severe weather, this is probably not, in the grand scheme of life, a big enough threat that we would normally do a live stream for. It's just a couple severe thunderstorms. But we know that the fact of life right now in Western North Carolina, between storm anxiety and the state of the ongoing cleanup, means that there's a bit more at play here than what is simply on the radar. Ben, I've just seen your question here about the storms passing near Weaverville and Asheville. So hopefully I happen to answer that one, but it's between now and 11:15. And so we got Mary in North Asheville. The lightning strikes are lighting up my room. The thunder keeps getting louder and louder. Certainly, Marion. I know that can be a little scary and disheartening too, as I'm sure you're trying to wind down your evening. We can see it remotely on this camera as you are currently living it. It's going to be gone from your area in the next 30 minutes or so. And then hopefully you get some good night's sleep. Again, we are still watching, Mary, and to everyone in this area, more thunderstorms that are coming out of Tennessee over the course of the next few hours or so. Again, this is a very, very low-end threat. It's a non-zero threat. So, Mary and all, I hope you either have a NOAA weather radio or something on your phone that will awaken you in the middle of the night if you were to need it. Hopefully not tonight, hopefully never again, but just in case, it's always good to have multiple ways to receive severe weather warnings. Let's see. Chris, I was wondering how radar worked in the mountains, given the 4,000 to 5,000 foot elevations around here. Sometimes that's the altitude of storm bases. Absolutely. Radar in the mountains can be really tricky. And so to give a really brief overview, we can talk about this more at another time during our weekly Wednesday night show. We have 4 different angles. Oh, my green screen does not like me holding up 4, that the radar kind of comes out at. And what you need to understand is that when radar leaves the actual radar location, which for you guys is going to be upstate South Carolina, it gets higher and higher forget the mountains for a moment. It just gets higher and higher as it leaves that radar. And in that, we can get up to 4 different readings. So for me in Charlotte, I'm pretty flat, relatively speaking, between here and upstate South Carolina. So I always want the lowest possible reading. By the time it gets to Charlotte, it's sometimes 8,000 feet up in the air just because of the way the curvature of the earth is and the beam's getting higher and higher. For the mountains, sometimes those lowest beams, to your point, hit right into the side of the mountains, and then it can't see past that point. It's like a wall. And so a lot of times we're switching to that higher radar scan so we can get up over some of those mountains to see a little bit more, but then we're really high up in the atmosphere. I remember I went to, where did I go? Great Smoky Mountain Railroad. And you're in the valley there, and the radar, it was raining, it was pouring there in Bryson City. But on the radar, it looked fine because the radar couldn't see. It was blocked by the mountains. So it's tricky. And that's where you guys at home come in. You guys are great with storm reports. Thank you so much for your reports. Ben, thanking us for going live. Thank you, Ben, for being here. And the storm reports that you guys are relaying to us is how we know what's going on in a lot of these places. Because as much as we love radar, as much as we love cameras, sometimes the only way to really know what's going on is the people who are actually there physically on the ground. We have some of you watching from Tennessee tonight, and so we know that you guys are getting first licks on this and then passing it on to us. So hopefully you guys get some sleep on both sides of the things. Daniel is saying hail being reported in Alexander, North Carolina. Is that Alexander? That must not be Alexander County. Is that Alexander County, or is that someplace? Is there a city or a town of Alexander? That looks like it's in Buncombe County. Alexander is in Buncombe County, unincorporated area. Apologies. We have so many of these instances where we have cities and towns that also share county names. And I was like, I didn't think we made it to Alexander County just yet. But certainly, yes. Certainly, yes. Just north of Asheville there, we are again watching for hail and watching for that to come on through here in the next short little bit. We'll wind this picture back out because I think a lot of you are now starting to get in on this heavy rain that is moving into portions of western North Carolina. Let's go to our resort cam in Boone, North Carolina. Ever since Helene, it doesn't play consistently, but we can see how wet the roads are. We can see there are vehicles on the roadway kind of spraying things up. It will inevitably start playing again here in a minute. We know that they, as so many of you have been working to repair a lot of things there. And so we don't have this currently playing live time, but I'm sure in a moment it will be back. Question from Daniel. Thought there was 1 inch reported about the hail. Yes. So the observed strength of some of this hail has been about 1 inch. Chris, thanks for the explanation on the radar. Getting multiple lightning strikes just a mile or so from here. Wind and heavier rain picking up. You're very welcome. Hopefully I didn't go down too far down a rabbit hole. I'm good at going down rabbit holes. But living here in Charlotte, my radar knowledge has come not from mountains, but from we're too far away from a radar to get great radar coverage. So I've tried to learn as much as I possibly can. Daniel confirming for me that Alexander is between Weaverville there in Buncombe County. So appreciate that. And thank you for, this is a two-way education street, as you guys can see here tonight. We've been streaming here on the Carolina Weather Group for like 10 years, and I'm still learning every little square inch of the state. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot more. So appreciate you guys kind of being along with me. That's why I like doing these streams with you guys here on YouTube, because it really becomes a bit of a two-way conversation as we can pop up comments such as this one from Elizabeth on the screen. Let me hop on over to my chat room for the National Weather Service. We are continuing the severe thunderstorm warning for Surrey, Wilkes, Southern Carroll, Grayson, and Patrick counties, the latter being in Virginia. So that severe thunderstorm warning is the one that's kind of over that I-77 corridor closer to Mount Airy. Put that back on the screen for you here so you can see that severe thunderstorm warning is being continued for the threat of 3/4 inch size hail. 3/4. 0.75 of an inch, must be a better way to say that, is the hail threat with that one there, and winds around 60 miles an hour. We are starting to get reports of hail in Marshall. North Carolina, make my way back over here. I wish I had one radar view that worked for everyone from Asheville to Mount Airy. And again, you can get apps that stitch all these images together, whether they're from Roanoke or Greer or whatever, but we're getting them faster and more live time by doing them one at a time. And so that's why you guys see me doing all that clicking. Again, reports of hail right now in Marshall, North Carolina, dime-sized. I actually do have a photo I can show you guys. So Burke County has somebody who is sharing a picture. I don't think we've actually, have we made it into Burke yet? I'm not sure. Let's just go ahead and pop this up. Hang on. I got to build it in real time. I don't know. I'm probably going to disappear there for a second. There I am. Down at the bottom, we got this picture that we can show you of some of the smaller hail that is being reported tonight. This is from Marshall, North Carolina. Trained spotter took this picture. It's being relayed to the National Weather Service. Again, this is about dime size. So that's on the smaller size of some of the things we're keeping an eye on tonight, but it's a good reminder of what we're looking more quarter size hail in some of these places that we're keeping a very close eye on. I do have another picture. This is more of a National Weather Service explainer, but I think I can go ahead and pop this up on the screen too. This is just there, relaying a little bit of what we're already talking about here. The image is uploading as we speak. Storms will move from Tennessee into North Carolina this evening through the early overnight hours. Poses an isolated, that's a good word, isolated threat of severe weather. Storms are expected to weaken as they reach the foothills in the Piedmont, so that's closer to, say, Charlotte. The impacts in Madison and northern Wilmington counties, 50+ mile-per-hour winds, quarter-size hail, small hail, and 30 to 40 mile per hour elsewhere in the mountains. So again, this is on the lower end of a severe weather threat. Actions are to remain indoors and to monitor for any severe thunderstorm warnings. You'll notice really no mention there of tornadoes. We're not really expecting that to be much of a threat for us over here in North Carolina. We know that was a bit of a threat in Tennessee. We're watching for the threat of an outlier. Always better safe than sorry. Steve says, love your videos. Well, we love that you love the video, Steve. Thank you so much. They're in Rutherfordton, North Carolina, waiting on the storm. Steve, I know you guys have had a lot recently there in Rutherfordton between Helene and wildfires in that greater vicinity. So certainly probably a lot on your mind. We had the chance to come out to your neck of the woods, more or less, maybe a little less, when we went and visited Chimney Rock and Lake Lure at the end of December, and what an experience that was, and a heartfelt one. And we where I am in Charlotte, I had been kind of waiting to go up into the mountains to do any storytelling until we got an invite from folks who said, yes, please come and share our story and show people what's going on, because we didn't want to get in the way. And so that experience there in December for the one-day Christmas village was something else. It was hard to see. We were talking to a lot of your neighbors, and we know you guys have a bit of a road ahead. So as we're watching here tonight, again, some of that heavier rain, some of that hail threat right now, just north of Asheville near Weaverville, Woodfin, and then coming to Black Mountain in the next 15 minutes as this severe thunderstorm warning again moves on through. Don't let your guard down. We do have other strong to severe thunderstorms back behind this first one. You can kind of see the training effect. We got 1, 2, bear with me if I call that one 3, and then maybe even 4 that are all going to kind of follow the same path. And it's called the training effect because much like a train going down train tracks, it's going to, every storm is going to go over the same set of tracks over and over and over again. And so we will be watching for the possibility of some localized flooding. Again, nothing like Helene, but enough that we could see creeks and streams rise up a little bit. And so if you live along a creek or a stream, or if you head into or out of work during the overnight hours when it's dark, if you know that sometimes you get a little bit close to a creek or a stream and it doesn't take much for that roadway to get flooded, that's kind of the scenario that we are describing. We're Randy's watching from Northeast Ohio. Thanks for checking in from Ohio. Loving the vibe. Appreciate that. You're very welcome for the coverage. And we love that you're checking in with us here in the Carolinas because that's something, you know, sometimes people have asked, why do you call yourselves the Carolina Weather Group? Well, we do a lot of severe weather coverage like this for the Carolinas. Our weekly podcast is based on a lot of Carolina weather topics, but as Randy might find, we try to make it applicable and interesting to everybody because there's things that we can all learn from each other. So thanks for checking in. Dylan is in hopes Asheville gets spared. They dealt with enough with Helene, which impacted him personally. And certainly, yes, I think we're going to get a couple of severe thunderstorms moving through the area here tonight. I think in the grand scheme of life, this is not going to be any sort of day we remember too far into the future. But again, as you guys have been talking about, conversations and vibes and kind of just keeping each other updated, that's what we're about here. So Daniel, going back to our conversation about learning, Daniel's got a degree in atmospheric sciences from University of North Carolina at Asheville. That's awesome. And you're right. We're learning new stuff. We're constantly learning new stuff, and we can all learn from each other. So this camera is going to pause here briefly. If you've been with me a minute, you know the routine. The camera's going to pause here briefly, and then the automation will continue to pan it off to the right when we get a view better to the north and to the west, and we can see some of those storms. I'm not expected to know cardinal directions after 11 o'clock at night, am I? So here we go. The camera's going to pan back off, and we'll see what some of that lightning is. Again, you guys watching from this area, you know what the lightning is. You can see it. You can hear the thunder. For those of us watching from elsewhere, this is how we're experiencing what you're experiencing. So wait to see. There it is. Wow. You know, the lightning gives us a chance to kind of see the clouds that obviously we can't see at night like we could during the day. Luckily, again, we're not expecting much of a tornado threat with this, but it's just to watch those kind of angry clouds there to the north of Asheville tonight is something to keep an eye on. Kova's watching from Virginia, family in North Carolina. Yeah, absolutely. If we can help you stay in touch with what your friends and family are experiencing, if you're watching from afar, we are happy to do that. So again, if we kind of just push on in here, I think this is now just between Weaverville and Woodfin. We can see some of the lightning strikes. This is going to be coming into Swannanoa, Black Mountain, Montreat there along the I-40 corridor in the next few minutes. We're looking at reflectivity. We are at tilt 4, the highest of the elevations for the radar scans from Greenville, Spartanburg. We'll look at the velocity here for just a minute. I mean, this is good news in terms of this storm previously was rotating in Tennessee, and I don't even see much in terms of rotation here on velocity as we look at what the winds are doing inside this storm. And if we switch it on over to our vertical integrated liquid, which is how we see hail, I would say even that appears to have come back on down a bit. Let me loop the hail over the last little bit. That's a pretty good length. How far back did that go? We're at 11 o'clock. Oh, went back about an hour. And so you can see the cell right now is weakening as it makes its way through this little channel. You can see how bright it was initially as it made its way past Newport, Tennessee there, where some of those circles are, and was certainly putting down some good hail. It's weakened a bit as far as we can tell on radar. See earlier conversation about how well radar works in the mountains. So there's a bit of a caveat there, but it does appear to be weakening a bit that hail threat, which does make sense because we were expecting a lot of this threat to kind of diminish as we got later into the overnight hours. I'm going to switch to the Tennessee radar for a moment because you can see just how far back this extends. So like here's that right now just north of Asheville, and you can kind of see in a bit of an arch how far back some of this goes. And that's where some of this repeated training of heavy rain is coming on in. And so you can see now that the National Weather Service over in Tennessee has issued is this a flash flood warning just north of Knoxville from Mascot? Down to Danridge, north of Sevierville. And that's just because they had thunderstorm after thunderstorm after thunderstorm, which was, of course, bringing them lots of rain. Matter of fact, I bet you if I click on this, it'll tell us how much rain our friends in Tennessee got over a short period of time. They got about between 1.5 inches and 3 inches of rain over the last 2 hours. So that's not an insignificant amount of rain. in a very short period of time. So they're watching there for the possibility of some flooding, small creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets, underpasses, and as well as any sort of poor drainage in low-lying areas. Again, that's on the Tennessee side of things right now, but I wouldn't be surprised as these storms continue to move into the Carolinas that we get some sort of flood advisory or maybe even a flood warning associated with these. Widen back out because it's been a second since I've gone a little bit further north to show you what else is going on there. Again, these storms near Mount Airy, White Plains, Dobson, Canna, Fancy Gap, Sparta. This warning goes for the next 3 minutes. We'll see what the Weather Service decides to do. And we are still watching on again, off again periods of heavy rain, some heavier periods. If you're watching from Boone, Blowing Rock, Banner Elf, Beach Mountain, coming off of Road Mountain right now, we do have a little bit area of heavy rain, but I'm not seeing anything in terms of lightning. And am I really even seeing anything in terms of hail? Let's look. No, not really. So, if you're up there in Ash, Watauga, Avery County, it's certainly raining. You're certainly getting some thunder, but I think it's garden variety thunderstorms for the most part because the only game in town much past 11:15 here is going to be this line of storms that's making its way through Asheville as we look again from the Greenville Spartanburg radar. Not seeing anything in terms of rotation. That's good news. We'll switch back over to the hail threat, which again kind of looks like it is diminishing a bit with these storms. So where does that leave us as we go on through the next few hours? I'm going to pull up our future cast here. Stand by as I get it loaded. And you kind of can see where we're at right on now-ish. And as we go on the next few hours, that line will get closer to the foothills and the Piedmont and the Triad. And then it kind of spaces out. We will get some rain as far east as the I-95 corridor in North Carolina. You can see even a couple cells here in upstate South Carolina. Not expecting any sort of severe weather outbreak or anything like that. Matter of fact, if you look at the severe weather outlook for the remainder of Thursday night into the overnight hours of Friday from the Storm Prediction Center arm of the National Weather Service, you can see most of us are in that light green. That just means chance of rain, chance of maybe some thunder. The severe weather impacts start with the darker green and the yellow. The darker green being a tier 1 out of 5, the yellow being a tier 2 out of 5. And so you can see that that is really off to our western North Carolina, those first few counties included. Bigger threat across Tennessee. So again, all in all, not expecting a whole lot, but enough that if you weren't expecting lightning or thunder tonight, you would probably be going to bed going, what is that? I'm going to do one more check here with the National Weather Service. No new information coming out of Greenville, Spartanburg. Checking in with the Roanoke office. No new information there. We know the folks certainly in Knoxville on the Tennessee side will have a bit of an ongoing period where they're going to continue to watch some of those thunderstorms that they'll pass along to us, as well as probably checking out some storm damage on the Tennessee side in the morning to see what exactly may have been on the ground, because it's likely that Tennessee did get some storm damage tonight. Checking our comments one more time. Some of you saying rushing to get the kids to some good places, keeping being storm ready. I think some of these comments maybe speak a little bit to what we talked about earlier in the stream, which is a real thing of storm anxiety, and making sure that at the first sign of thunder or lightning, we're getting ourselves and our families to a safe place. So being inside is a good place to be. Again, we're not really seeing anything in the immediate future for a tornado warning. I can't completely rule out a chance of a tornado warning with any of these cells during the overnight hours, even some of those discrete ones in upstate South Carolina, but it's not anticipated. It's not anticipated that we would get a tornado warning. Again, you could, across a lot of the Carolinas, could by daybreak find yourself experiencing just a regular thunderstorm. So. Steve, we were talking about Rutherfordton. His comment here. Thank you for showing this video. 20 miles from Chimney Rock, where you are, and Back Cave area flooded very badly. Yeah, absolutely. That video we did there from Chimney Rock and Lake Lure to end our 2024 season of our weekly podcast was one I will remember for forever. So hopefully you guys got a chance to check that out if you haven't already. It's here on our YouTube channel. I don't know if I have a bookmark ready to put on the screen for it, but if you guys scroll on back, you'll certainly find what Steve and I have been talking about there. Just an example of one of the many areas hard hit by Helene. Yeah. So what we're going to do, if you're watching with us, if you're watching me right now on YouTube, and you see a ticker going at the bottom of the screen and a little thing by my face that says Carolina Weather Net, you don't have to do anything. You're already on our overnight service where you'll have radar and sky cams and real-time warnings from the weather service going all night long. So you can just leave it right there where you are. If you don't see a ticker at the bottom of the screen and you're like, what's he talking about? In just a moment, the video that I'm currently talking to you on will end, and you will then be redirected by YouTube to join our overnight service, the Carolina Weather Net, which again will have radar and sky cams and real-time warnings from the National Weather Service. And that's something we offer on our YouTube channel in periods of time where myself or some of our other hosts may not be immediately available. We still want to make sure you guys are safe and have warnings. And so that's where our automated service, the Carolina Weather Net, comes on into play. You can watch it anywhere. You can watch YouTube from your phone to your smart TV, on the go, or at home. But again, it's not going to have sound or anything on it. So if you're heading to bed tonight and you want to make sure that you're awoken for storms, NOAA Weather Radio, something on your phone, make sure your phone maybe is not on Do Not Disturb, whatever you need, so that if a warning does go out for your area, you can then know to go turn on Carolina Weather Net or turn on a local broadcaster to find out what's going on. Again, not expecting a big outbreak tonight, but just a little something here in February and winter when people maybe aren't thinking about storms like we might be later on in the year. So for now, I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. We'll see you back each and every Wednesday night for our weather podcast, if not sooner, for streams just like this as we continue to track storms throughout the area. And I would be a bad host if I didn't scroll the names of all of our Patreon supporters and YouTube memberships that help make this channel possible. As I mentioned earlier on, I'm building a little streaming setup here at a secondary location in my house so that we can do these late night streams in a way that doesn't disturb the rest of my family. So thanks to the folks whose names are at the bottom of the screens who helped buy a couple of the lights you see on my face here or on our other co-hosts as we kind of make some improvements to continue to grow the channel. We appreciate everyone who has joined us on Patreon or on YouTube memberships to make that happen. We couldn't have done it without you. And if you're not in a position to financially support the show, that's okay. Please subscribe, tell a friend, any of those things that don't cost you anything or ways you can help us continue to do what we do. We love doing it. We're here for the fun of it. We're here to help keep you safe. And as we've talked about, kind of grow and learn together. So it's about 11:20 now. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night, a wonderful weekend. And we'll talk to you again real soon from everyone here at the Carolina Weather Group. Have a good night.